ahead and get started. My name is Marvell Adams Jr. I am the CEO of the Caregiver Action Network based in Washington, D.C., but we have a national reach and just delighted to be here with you today as a part of our partnership with EmbodiedLabs and the CalGrow's Innovation Grant. So we're going to be talking a bit today about understanding dementia from within as shown from embodying Beatrix a little bit later on. But what I'd first like to do is go over just what we're gonna have for an agenda today. So, welcome, of course, and we're gonna do some introductions in just a moment. But also, we will give an overview of the program itself, so you have an understanding of the context of our conversation today. We're going to have a couple different conversations with individuals that have had direct utilization of the experiences, as well as the Caregiver Action Network team and our time utilizing the Beatrix Lab and embodied technologies in order to really understand better how caregivers can support loved ones going through cognitive change. You're going to get a chance to actually experience that training. And so by the end of this webinar today, you will have experienced the training of the Beatrix lab and really have an opportunity to walk away with some really impactful learnings. And then we're going to just have a discussion about that impact of our training and then just do a Q&A. So throughout this, there will be an opportunity to add Q&A questions in the chat. And there's a Q&A feature that should be at the bottom of your screen. And we will start to address some of those questions during the Q&A section today. We have a few announcements and we will close out at the top of the hour. So thanks everyone for being here. But first things first, let's do some introductions. So as I said, my name is Marvell Adams Jr. I serve as CEO of Caregiver Action Network. Joining us today that will come on camera a little bit later is Nicole Goebel. Nicole is Caregiver Action Network's Director of Community Initiatives. Chance Browning, who is our Director of Strategic Partnerships, and Dakota Heath, who is the John Shaw Policy and Program Fellow. So you'll leave today with a few different takeaways, hopefully. So gaining insights into why people living with dementia engage in the world around them in the way that they do, and that it's sometimes hard to understand. You'll also really get to fully engage meaningfully on how to have ideas that really support joyful interaction with individuals living with dementia, understanding some strategies on how to navigate safely and more smoothly through those challenging situations that always come up in caregiving circumstances. And then also just a program note that individuals that are on this webinar that are California residents, there's a bonus, if you will, of no cost access to the immersive training courses through Caregiver Action Network and CalGrow's. And so you will participate in that training today, but if you're a California resident, you have an opportunity for additional immersive training courses. So now in experiencing the CalGrow's training, so, certainly we could not have a better introduction to you immersing yourselves in the training that Priti just talked about. So what I'd like to do is invite onto the screen a couple colleagues of mine from Caregiver Action Network. I mentioned earlier, Nicole Goebel was joining us, our Director for Community Initiatives, as well as Dakota Heath, who is our Policy and Program Fellow at Caregiver Action Network. Welcome to you both. Good to see your smiling faces as always. Nicole and Dakota, I think we were going to start off with a pre-training poll. Is that correct?
That is absolutely correct. So before we get into the experience, got a little bit of homework for folks here. This is just going to help us, as we go through the experience and really kind of talk about it, kind of figure out like what kind of impact it's really making for folks as well. So just a couple of questions. So we are keeping it short. The first question is, how would you rate your current understanding of dementia? And so this is on a scale of 1, which is I don't understand dementia, to 5. I feel like I have basically a PhD upper level kind of education on understanding the ins and outs. I could be a doctor essentially. So go ahead and submit your rating there. And then the second question is rate your level of competence in your ability to support someone living with dementia in the community. And so, how confident do you feel about kind of your abilities as a caregiver to provide some of that support that your loved one with Alzheimer's or dementia would need? We'll give folks just a second here. Oh, and that's a really great question, Stephanie. I saw your question in the chat about what do we mean about in the community. That usually means an individual that is, living at home or in some kind of, um, not necessarily like an assisted living facility, like we think of it, kind of like a nursing home, with lots of, I think, dedicated and more intensive types of care, but more where there's a little bit more of an independence. And so they're able to, do certain things on their own, maybe with a little bit of support. That's what we mean about in the community. I hope I explained that well. All right. So I see some results popping up here. So thank you guys for taking the time to complete this. Um, our, like I said, I hope that, we are going to come back to these questions after we go through the experience. And I hope that we've perhaps made you feel a little bit more informed and confident as a result. So let's get into the experience here. We're going to be walking through the Beatrix lab, one of the modules, and we're going to be walking through a module where Beatrix has been diagnosed with Alzheimer's, but it's still, I think, fairly early in the diagnosis, but we're starting to see some progression of symptoms. The family has come over to convene because it's Easter and tradition is tradition. We're going to have that big family meal. And as the family is coming together, they start to notice that, there are some things that are a little bit different. And so a couple of things that I want to know before my colleague Dakota jumps in and kind of steers us through. One of the things that we like to do when we're going through this training is kind of prime folks in a couple of ways. One, this can be really emotional. Oftentimes, this can bring up some really complicated feelings for folks because we're maybe understanding or seeing things through a certain lens for the first time, and it can be a little bit overwhelming. So when we are going through these trainings, we always encourage folks, if you need to take a step back, if you need to pause, please feel free to do that. Absolutely fine. The other thing that we like to point out is that this is immersive. And so, you may notice some kind of visual things that are a little bit different. You might have some kind of auditory things that are going on as well. This isn't a glitch within the platform. This isn't a glitch with EmbodiedLabs. This is really about getting you immersed and embodying Beatrice in this moment. So we like to kind of prime you a little bit with that. So now I'm going to turn it over to my colleague Dakota, who is going to walk us through this module.
Thank you, Nicole. Hi, everyone. Again, Dakota Heath here, and we're getting ready to walk through this module with Embodied Labs. And again, before we begin, while in the experience, you're going to be embodying Beatrice. So at times there may be visual glitches or errors in like speech patterns or something like that. Those are not a error on your end. Those are something that Beatrice would be experiencing as she's progressing through early onset Alzheimer's. And again, strong emotional reactions are common, as Nicole said. If you feel like you are going to have a emotional reaction, please feel free to step away. It is perfectly normal. Moving on, again, as Nicole stated, we will be embodying Beatrice. She's a middle-aged Latina woman with progressive Alzheimer's disease, and she's been a math teacher for nearly 4 decades. Beatrice enjoys spending time with her family, especially her grandson Junior, cooking and going to mass every Sunday. And Beatrice is always ready to listen to some music and ready to dance. And I want you to notice as you're going through this module how this makes you feel, and consider how a family or group gatherings may cause stress for someone living with Alzheimer's or dementia. And we're going to be starting now. And before we start, actually, I do want to say that throughout the module, there'll be certain hotspots that look like little plus signs that you can click on. I'll be clicking on a few of those throughout this. It gives you a little bit more context of the surroundings and a little bit more context of how Beatrice may be feeling or how someone with Alzheimer's may handle this kind of situation or feel about this kind of situation. And this is a 360 experience. So in this case, I am able to click and drag across the screen and see all around us. So again, it's like we're inside of her eyes. If it will load here. Little technical issue. Give me 1 second and see if that pops up this time. There we go.
Dakota, we have no audio.
Oh, apologies for that. Let me fix that real quick, and then I will bring it right back up. There we go. Can y'all see the screen?
Yes.
Perfect. I can start over here.
Hi, Mom. We're here. Hi, Mom. Hey, what are you still doing in your PJs? Are you not leaving, Mom? Don't come earlier if I knew.
You what?
Hey, Junior, could you please come in here? Could you wipe up the counters for me? And Mom, if you finish cutting those potatoes, I'll take care of everything else.
Did Grandma make her cake this time?
It's Easter.
Thanks so, sweetheart.
Merry Easter!
Hey!
Oh, it's Easter?
How are you? What's up, buddy? How you doing? Oh, you getting big, getting big. I can't pick you up anymore. Hey, baby, how you doing? Oh, man, it's a mess in here. Must be Mom's on her cooking, yeah?
What's she talking about?
We kissed you at church this morning. What's she doing still in her PJs?
I think she's under the weather today. I keep telling her to get dressed, but she's focused on cutting those potatoes.
We don't want any.
Hello!
How are you?
Yeah.
Who's this beautiful lady you guys going to? How you doing?
How are you? I've heard so much about you.
Why is her stuffing on the sofa? Here's the sofa.
Okay. Just to let everyone know, we're running a little behind on the food, but it'll be ready in about a hour.
A tower? What? We're alarming.
I know. I'm sorry. Tom is one of the weathers today. Tom? She's just been cutting those potatoes in her BJ's all morning.
Why are these people here?
But she always gets those dressed up for these things.
Why not the eggs in Easter?
Grandma didn't make a pound cake.
Mommy forgot to rake the cake?
I can cake it. Where's the flour?
It's a small share shoved.
We have to have cake. Couple get them.
Okay, no one is leaving. Everyone, go into the giving loom. We'll be ready soon.
Is she still cutting toast?
Tell them. You have to tell them.
Grandma?
Are you through?
Take out your note and read it to them.
I think Grandma's sick.
So that was just a little short snippet of Beatrice's lab. And going through just kind of a reflection now of everything. Uh, the tips for successful gatherings if you were going to be host or having a gathering with someone that has dementia or Alzheimer's. Uh, uh, you can simplify the celebrations. Have others host, plan multiple small gatherings instead of one big party. Order prepared food or ask people to bring a dish to share to alleviate the stress and the what's the word I'm looking for? The stress that may be caused by this. And shorten the party even and plan for a time of day that feels the clearest. Late morning is often the best for people living with Alzheimer's, while evenings are typically challenging. And you can always ask for help. Find tasks that your loved one can successfully perform and keep them meaningfully engaged. Manage the noise level. If you noticed in the module, there was so much noise going on, and for someone experiencing Alzheimer's, that can be extremely overwhelming. So turning off or muting the television or trying to only have one conversation happening per room would definitely be beneficial for someone experiencing Alzheimer's. With that being said, I'm going to end the experience here. And I wanted to take a second to do a post-training poll, kind of, to get a sense of how did you, embodying Beatrice, feel when everyone was in your kitchen? How did that make you feel to see all those people around you and to have everything going on? I see an anxious and confused in the chat, overwhelmed. And once we have all of these answers in, then we'll go over just what the majority of people were feeling during this. I'm seeing a lot of people commenting overwhelmed, anxious. Wow, yeah. So with the results coming back, 59% of you were saying that it made you feel anxious. 55% said made you feel confused, and 83% made you feel overwhelmed. And I can understand that. It was very overwhelming, especially just all of the loudness and all of the arguing. For someone like Beatrice, that can definitely make a big impact on her. With that also being said, I would like, if you can, take a moment and you can answer this directly to the hosts and the panelists if you'd want this to remain anonymous. But we would like you to put into the chat, what is something that in this instance, Beatrice's family could have done differently to better support you?
Yeah, so be thinking about some of those tips that came up at the very end, as well, and think about how the scene was playing out. This is one of my favorite modules because I think it also gives uh caregivers a really unique opportunity to kind of see themselves in a situation of that we often don't get that kind of perspective. We kind of see from our loved ones' perspective, like, oh, this is how they were viewing what I was doing or saying in that moment. So see
I'm seeing
some.
seeing a lot of people saying slow down, be more observant, talk at once. A lot of slow downs. And yeah, that's something that they need. And you all are absolutely right with all of your answers that all of these things are things they could have done better if they would have known, or yes. But
Thank
yes,
you
so
so much, Dakota.
mhm.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, perfectly fine.
Uh, yeah, just each time I see this the modules, I noticed something I did not notice before, and that was the case here as well. But also, it's interesting how I also realized just how much repetition can be helpful for sometimes for individuals, because I was able to pick up words that I could not pick up before, and noticing that Beatrix obviously has gaining some deficits from her early stages of the disease. So, I want to take a moment just to talk with both Nicole and Dakota a bit about, so when you think of what we just experienced and what you've seen in the trainings we've done over the last couple of months, what problems does this type of training help solve? Nicole, I'll start with you.
I think it solves an issue, and this is something that I think a lot of folks that have or are caring for a loved one with Alzheimer's or dementia have experienced is those moments of disconnect, of not being able to understand, what your loved one is saying or doing, and that causing a lot of difficulty in a situation. Both in terms of making a situation really emotional, and adding that fraughtness to it, and then just adding another layer of confusion. Well, what does my loved one need? What are they trying to say? How do I help in this situation? I think that uh, this kind of training really does allow you just to take a moment and get a different perspective and say, oh, well, going back to what a lot of people were saying, and I think what was kind of echoed in some of the tips that we've talked through is slowing down, taking a second to take a step back and say, okay, well, let me assess this situation and let me think about, maybe what my loved one may be experiencing. And this can be hard because, depending on where you are with a diagnosis, and kind of that piece of the journey, um, you know, in this in the module that we just saw, um, you know, Beatrice was just telling her family about, kind of what was going on. And so I think about my experience. My great grandmother had Alzheimer's, and she was kind of a babysitter for me a lot before and after school. My family moved to Iowa, and so she lived just down the road from my grandparents, but she absolutely demanded that if I needed someone to kind of watch over me before or after school, she was going to be the one to do it because she was a retired school teacher. And so she's like, I will help Nicole with her homework and it will be great. And I really loved it. But there came a time where, we kind of had this ritual of, I would get there early in the morning and she would have breakfast ready and all of these things. And it became a little bit more challenging because she would be a little bit more scattered in the morning. She wouldn't be able to find things, or she would forget that, oh, I started oatmeal and left it on the stove, things like that. And so I kind of had to take over. And we said, all right, well, how about this, Grandma? I will make us breakfast and you can go and get photo albums because she loved to like walk through all of these old pictures. She had kind of become this small town that she and my grandparents lived in, kind of like a historian. And so it was so much fun. But, I think about even as a younger kid, being able to have that perspective to be like, I really do need to maybe think about, especially in moments where grandma would seem a little bit more agitated or upset about something, that would have been able to kind of help me figure out what was really going on.
Yeah. So how old were you when you were going to your grandmother's house?
So it started when I was 5, in
Mm-hmm.
kindergarten. And then I think around 10 or 11,
Mm-hmm.
um, that's when we had to kind of transition her into an assisted living facility that was actually closer to where I lived, so that my mom could kind of be our regular check-in person with her there. So, um, for maybe the first year or so, everything was fine, but then started to notice things. And I was also in charge of being able to tell my grandparents. Um, my grandparents worked and traveled quite a bit at that time. But being able to tell my grandpa, her son, like, hey, grandpa, uh, you know, grandma seems to be really confused about a couple of things, and she forgot
Mm-hmm.
this morning, and kind of had this situation pop up. And so I was able to kind of be a little bit of a spy for him and be like, all right, well, go and check and see what's
Yeah.
going on.
Mm-hmm.
And if there's stuff that needs to be done, report back and I'll
Mm-hmm.
I'll take the next step. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Wow. No, it just stood out to me that when you started talking about that you would arrive and started helping out and started doing things, I would go as far as to say that perhaps that was your first experience as a caregiver.
absolutely. And it's, especially as a kid, you don't that would never be a word that would come into my mind.
Right.
Um, but then I would see my grandparents do the same thing, when I would be down visiting them and we would go over to grandma's house and spend time. My grandpa started doing some of those same things. And so, yeah, we really just kind of rallied to, make her as comfortable as possible at home for as long as we could.
Yeah. Great. Well, just one other question, and Dakota, if you'd like to chime in on this, but what do you hope other organizations can achieve from this embodied labs training? And perhaps why should they complete or continue the embodied labs training?
I can step in here first. I mean, I feel as if no matter the organization, everyone can gain something from this. I mean, whenever we were talking with Embodied Labs, they mentioned how there was I believe it was an architect school that used their training, and they were using it in a way that they could design buildings to be more accessible for
Mhm.
people with Alzheimer's. And I think that that is amazing. Um, and I feel like that kind of extends further on and into the other trainings that Embodied Labs has. I feel like there is different elements to each training that any individual, no matter what organization or what sector they could be in, could benefit from it in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah. Wow. Well put. So, Dakota, I'll ask if we could do the post poll training number two, I
Yes.
think.
Yes.
All right.
So this is that homework that Nicole gave you. It's coming back. Um, it is the same question that was posted before, with a one at the bottom extra, but just to kind of give an understanding of the differences between the two, of at the beginning of this training and now at the end that we've gone through the module and have discussed a little bit. And then once all those answers are in, I can say just how different they are because I'm hoping that we've been able to really inform and give some vital information today to y'all.
Yeah. And it's amazing to see just, I mean, we've been here together for 50 minutes, but really only a short period of that 50 minutes has been focused on the immersive experience. We've certainly had some great conversation along the way as well. But, many times I think we find that training is seen as a very a labor intensive and, perhaps not engaging as much as we'd like it to be. And for us to be able to not only have it be a short window of training, but also to hopefully gain a fair amount from that short window. It's one of the reasons that Caregiver Action Network partnered with Embodied Labs because our objective really is how do we make training and supports and services for caregivers and those they love more accessible. And the fact that we have folks from numerous states and territories, this is certainly in the category of being more accessible. So very curious to see what your thoughts are, having pre-training poll on these same questions and now the post-training poll.
One thing I want to just kind of throw in there is where I know that Dakota talked a little bit about how other organizations can benefit from this. It's also important, I think, to note that there's some amazing other labs available through Embodied Labs that are very similar to the Beatrix lab, but focus in on some different things like end of life care and Parkinson's. And some others. And so there really is kind of some robust benefits, I think, in that regard too. And there is going to be some more kind of added to that roster as well, which we'll get to in just a bit.
And
Yeah.
I just wanted to say that the poll just came back in with the results, and we're seeing a lot more threes and fours now compared to before. So I'm really happy to see that. It's great to know that we were able to provide information to y'all that you found valuable. Just wonderful overall.
We're just so appreciative of this partnership and really the possibilities that have been opened up by our ability to have this be done in multiple locations, geographically spread out. So just in closing, thank you everybody for joining us today. We know that as caregivers, many of you that joined, you're taking precious minutes and a full hour out of your day that you most likely don't have. And so we really appreciate you taking the time, but also encourage you to reach out to Caregiver Action Network, which is at caregiveraction.org. And if you are interested in more support, we have a caregiver help desk, which takes phone calls as well as web chat and email, but also has a wonderful family toolkit that Nicole put in the chat and or mentioned in the chat. And we just really look forward to further engaging with you in the future. And thanks again for everyone at Caregiver Action Network for participating and our friends at Embodied Labs. Take care, everyone.